Hi, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of LandO's Lock-ins, a series in which we go through my personal pick'em process. We may have some new eyes, actually, on the series. Again, we are kind of new into this one. But again, like I said, this is just me kind of going through my CDL pick'ems for each week. We are on the cusp of a stage 4, which I'm very excited about. It's kind of crazy to think that we're already starting stage 4. I feel like we were just kind of in the stage 1 major just like a week ago, but hey, it is what it is. And what we're kind of preparing for the LAN, which is going to be very exciting for all of these players. And what a lot of changes, a lot of roster changes. Half of our CDL teams are different in some form or fashion, which is very exciting. And honestly, makes pick'ems that much more difficult. So I am not looking forward to this week in terms of like expecting, great results, but you never know. Something could happen. Now, again, I do want to address something. I really appreciate, again, all of the new eyes that could be on this video in particular, just because I know that we had a great stage 3 major bracket. We were one series away from the perfect bracket, not necessarily off of like exact maps, but off of overall series. We were nearly there. And tell you what, let me actually pull it up. I actually have it right here. I had a lot of people wanting to know or wanting to see, the bracket to see exactly how it went. So like we said, we were cruising along. We went through day 1 correct, day 2 correct, day 3, and then day 4 came upon us, and then we were at the major final. You actually can't see that. There we go. Can you see? Hopefully you can see that. There we go. Yeah, you guys can see it. And then the final one, 0 points. 0 points. From what I know, I think I had the longest running perfect bracket. I don't think anybody had a perfect bracket. I don't know if anyone's had a perfect bracket this season. So the fact that I was this close, this I don't know why I just did that. Like a peace sign, maybe a phase up. I don't know. We were this close to a perfect bracket. It's somewhat disheartening, but you know what? That's what makes it fun. Honestly, like I wasn't mad that we didn't get the perfect bracket. Obviously, I would have loved to, but it kind of motivates me to want to get a perfect bracket, if that makes sense. So like kind of for this series' sake, I'm really excited about it because that kind of creates the journey. It's like, hey, you know what? We start off this close and now we've got the rest of the season and, future to try and get that perfect bracket or maybe a perfect week, however we really want to try and summarize it. So again, it kind of makes things more exciting, makes things fun. But again, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. And if you are, again, new to this series, I do want to let you know that there will at some point be giveaways for this series. Just to kind of let everybody know some information, I was awarded a prize for my major 3 bracket, just because obviously for those who know, whenever you do make pick'ems, if you get a high enough amount of points on the leaderboard, you can earn prizes and stuff like that, which is awesome. If I do end up getting a prize, which I don't know how that process works because I do obviously work for the Call of Duty League, game and commentator for them, so I don't know how that works. If I do get a prize, I'll let you guys know right now. I'm not going to keep it. I'm going to give it to you guys. I'm going to give it to somebody who watches the LandO's Lock-in series, because again, I'm blessed enough to have all the equipment. I got the Astros, I got the scuff and the wonderful game fuel, which unfortunately is empty right here next to me. But I will be giving those things away. So if there is a prize that is given to me, I will make sure to make that known on Twitter, and I will make sure to make that known in one of these videos. Regardless, if I do get something, I will still be giving something away here in the future. So just something to kind of keep in mind. Again, I appreciate all the support on these videos as we're sitting pretty good right now. Again, since we have started LandO's Lock-ins, we nearly had a perfect bracket. And right now, other way, we are 23 for 26. It's crazy. It is crazy. We have predicted 26 series. We've gotten 23 of those right. And I'm very terrified that this week is going to destroy all of those things, which like I said, makes it fun. Again, if you want to get interactive, feel free to talk in the comments. Let me know. Walk me through some of your picks, things that maybe I predicted differently from you. If there's a certain series that you think needs to be talked about a lot more than I did, let's talk about it. It's going to be fun. Like I said, a lot of roster changes coming into this week. We got standoff, search, and destroy. And if you are looking for a more in-depth look at some of these teams, I did go through those on LandO's Logic. That is a series that I'm starting where I'm just going to kind of go over some regular subjects. It's not a series where it is, strictly news-based. It is honestly just opinion. So if you are looking for one of those, that is going to be up there for your interests. Again, where I kind of talk in depth, if you will, about my biggest storylines coming into stage 4, and I pretty much talk over every single roster, my thought process on them. And if that does affect your pick'em process, that could be a good video to watch as well. So with that being said, again, I know a long intro, apologies for that, but we had a lot of stuff, a lot of soap to sell, as we like to say in the biz. So with that in mind, let's get into the pick'ems. Here we go. All right. First series is going to be for the Chicago home series. Atlanta FaZe taking on the Paris Legion. Paris off of roster change with Zaptius. They've now brought him into the team. When we talk about this roster overall, they do lose Classic. He goes over to the Seattle Surge. Really biggest notes for me on Legion coming into stage 4, obviously is Zap's impact. What can he do? He was a part of that London team that did allow for them to go on a hardpoint winning streak. Just overall series wise, he seemed to improve series by series. How does that get impacted now with the Legion? Does everything kind of start from square one? Or does he kind of have his feet set? Can he make an immediate impact, an immediate difference onto a team like this? And so it's not my favorite roster change by any means coming into stage 4, but it's also not a bad one, I don't think, really, for Paris. My biggest things for Zaptius is just rather, can he be a consistent SMG presence? And then also, can he also contribute in the search and destroys, and specifically in the control? Because that is desperately where the Legion have to improve. I don't remember exactly what their stage 3 records were, but hardpoint was basically even, if not slightly below even, and they had like 1 win in control, and like I think they went winless in S&D. It was something like that. It was something of the two, but you really want to see them improve. And you know what? They're going up against Atlanta FaZe, right? They're going up against Atlanta FaZe, our stage 3 major victors. They seem to return back to form. They looked absolutely excellent. Arcides was, for me, outstanding in the search destroys, in the clutch. Really a number of different players that you could look out for the Atlanta FaZe, but Arcides really stuck off the page. And this team, you know, kind of throughout stage 3, they were working on their map vetoes, right? They were working on their map pool. They were preparing for the majors, and we see now that they kind of have the chains off, what they can do. And as much as I would love to try to, you know, sell that the Legion could come out here and instantly surprise us, I am going to go with the 3-0. I don't often try to, you know, go in depth on why I go with 3-0s. Sometimes I just have a feeling. Sometimes, you know, people in the comments, or rather just in general, it can look as if when you put a 3-0 down, that you think that people just assume it's going to be a dominant 3-0. I don't necessarily think this is going to be a dominant 3-0. Just from a series perspective, based on map vetoes, things of that nature, I just don't know where Legion really attacked them from. I don't think there is going to be a solid answer in the hard point, and then they're searching to destroy in their control. They've not given me a reason to go with them in that manner. So, like I said, this is going to be their first series. That probably is going to be more of a disadvantage for Legion than it would be an advantage for them. Sure, they can be crafty, but again, when you are a team that's struggling in 2 out of the 3 modes, it can be hard to be extra crafty in your map pool. So we'll see how that works. I'm going to be going FaZe here. But again, who knows? Maybe Paris could surprise us. All right, next one. Toronto Ultra taking on the Florida Mutineers. Toronto off of a 3rd place finish at the stage 3 major. They do have the mantra removed, right, of being the best team in the game. They went to quite a few game 5s, had a lot of different tough matchups. At the stage 3 major, they were very tested. They had that crazy game 5 round 11 versus Optic. And then they are going to be taking on the Florida team, who finished top 6 at the major. They beat Thieves in a series that actually that was probably one of the most difficult ones to predict. I did have them, of course, winning that series, but they did get 3-0'd badly by New York, and they also did get 3-0'd by Optic out of the tournament. I will say, I think this one has the ability to go the distance. For those that, you know, do pick'ems often, or maybe you don't do pick'ems a whole lot, in my opinion, Florida right now is the single-handedly most difficult team to predict, because I feel like they can 3-0 almost anybody, and they can lose 3-0 to almost anybody. And I say almost, not everybody, but we're nearly there. And then you talk about, too, again, positives to take away from Florida. Granted, they do get a nice win versus the Thieves, but in general, right, you do get that nice finish because of the fact that they do get that 3rd seed coming into the major. Or was it a 2nd seed? I forget. What seed did they get? Let me double check here. I don't want to speak out of term. What seed did they have? But the major thing, though, for the Florida Mutineers was that, you know, they start off, actually I have it here. Okay, they did get the second seed. That's right, because Dallas started to lower down. So Florida, they win one series versus the Thieves. That instantly grants them top 6. And then from there, they get expired. Like they get dominated. So it's kind of hard for me to, again, look at this Florida team and think, well, hey, that top 6 finish, that's pretty good. At the same time, you have to keep in mind how the pools were going in stage 3. The fact that they did beat a Thieves team that just now made a roster change. Clearly they weren't all there. They lose dominantly to both New York and Optic. So again, we're in the situation where it's like, where do we kind of go for Florida? And then also, I forgot, this is what I was going to say. In that series versus the Thieves, it was all Neptune, right? For those that remember, Neptune was just going off. He was the single difference maker, the one person who made the ultimate difference in that series. And if he doesn't do that, then what happens to Florida then? So again, a lot with Florida to me relies on the ARs. I will say this pretty much every time that we talk about them. It's going to come down to the ARs. If it does not come down to the ARs, it is going to come down to Neptune making plays, who I think has the ability to do that. To make a long story short, I am going to give Ultra the victory here. I think that they will be able to handle this series. They will be able to handle what can be a very on and off team in the Mutineers. But I am going to give Florida a map. I think that they have the ability to send this to a game 5. But I am going to be going 3-1 here. Really take your pick with maps. Florida can kind of hit you from all different directions. But really for Ultra, you're looking at that first hard point. If you close out that first hard point, you know you feel comfortable in the search and destroys. And then depending on map vetoes for this one in the control, you know, you look at it that way as well. So we've got a 3-0 for Atlanta FaZe to start off day 1, and Toronto Ultra getting business done versus the Mutineers. All right, feel pretty good about day 1, but you know, things are going to get more difficult from here. So now we come into day 2, Friday, Dallas Empire starting off the day versus the London Royal Ravens. Both teams off of a roster change, right? Vivid now in for the Dallas Empire, as the Empire have benched fellow. London bringing back Alex and also bringing in Afro for the first time, who of course is from the EU Challenger side. Very excited for Afro's debut. I think that he has the ability to be a rookie of the year type player. Granted, at this stage of the season with the team that he is on, you question those things. I think without a doubt, Insight leads the rookie of the year conversation. Hydra as well, of course, is in there too. But I think that maybe given that this is the start of the season, Afro would be one of my favorites, without knowing everything, to be one of those players. He and Hydra, absolutely dominant in the EU side. So I think for London, this is going to be great. I will say on the other side for London, I really liked what they had going. Like, you know, granted, I think Zap's contract was pretty short, so they end up losing him. But I wouldn't be mad if they kept Zed in the team and then also just added Afro. I like Alex, and we all know the talent that Alex has, but I don't know, has he been playing Call of Duty? We know that Zed has been working very well with this team. Again, the streak that London went on was very impressive. Their hardpoint streak, the way they were looking at times in the clutch, like they were taking down top caliber teams, or at least like your Minnesota Rockers and whatnot. So it is kind of unfortunate, because I think that the one moment that the Ravens team, you probably want to stick with the roster, is a time where they finally have the ability to make a move. I just feel like timing has been off for the Ravens all season long. I know they've been going through all kinds of struggles with COVID. Obviously, got a lot of players in Europe, coaching staff, all of those things. So it's a trade-off for me on the Ravens. I like Afro, but I still would like to see Zed in this team. And then again, you have Shawnee, who's just like, all right, gonna do this again, another iteration of players. We'll see how this works out. But I know, kind of going back to the team that probably most people are more interested in than the Ravens is going to be Dallas. And again, I touched on this on LandO's Logic, but I'm not really, I don't know how to say this exactly. I guess I'll just say what I said in LandO's Logic, but really, I'm not too interested to watch Vivid's impact. I'm more interested to see how Dallas Empire reacts, right? I'm more interested to see those 3 players react to having a player like Vivid on the team, because I think we know roughly what we're going to get from Vivid, right? A guy who can be a playmaker. He can be at times your island player in search and destroy, a very fast-paced player. I hope. So I'll say this. I think that Vivid has some great skills that can be harnessed and improved by the Dallas Empire. However, Vivid did come from a team who was very strategically based, who was very methodical. And the problem that I feel like with Dallas Empire is that they're trying to be too much of a slay-heavy team, more of a fast-paced team, when they should become more of a methodical team, because that is how they worked in Modern Warfare. They were methodical. They were great in the search and destroys. And so you have a player like Vivid who did not work in the guerrilla system of being methodical because of his pace. And now I feel like a team who needs to be more methodical is getting that same player who didn't work in the system prior. Granted, Guerrillas, Empire, two totally different teams, two totally different staffs who can utilize a player like Vivid, his skill set, in a much different way. But that does worry me a slight bit. But I think that overall, Vivid, it's going to be a great opportunity for him to obviously play alongside the players that Dallas have. Right, you're playing alongside Krim, right? You know, obviously the GOAT when we talk about Call of Duty Esports, Rambo, who is one of the most knowledgeable players in Call of Duty Esports history. These are players that you want to have in your corner. So this could be a great opportunity for Empire. I think that the idea of Shotzzy and Vivid together is a very intriguing one. And I will give Dallas the nod here. Honestly, if we did see just a Zed, or rather, if we did just see an Afro for Zaptius change, I might have London like in a game 5 potentially. But I think because of how big of a change, 50% of your roster is different for the Ravens. Again, I don't know how much COD that Alex has been playing. I don't know how Afro's going to come out in his debut game. But I think that Empire are going to be crafty here. I think that Vivid is going to have kind of one of those moments where he just kind of takes over in the game. And then we're all like, okay, that's why Vivid's here. Long term, again, I don't really know how that works, but I am going to give Dallas the W. I really wouldn't be surprised if we see London play this one close. And obviously a 3-1, you could argue, you know, how close that is. It's obviously in the middle. But I'm going to give the Empire a nod here. This could be a great series for both of these teams, honestly, just to kind of figure out where they're at, kind of figure out what this new team is going to be about. But I will give Empire the W here. All right, Chicago versus Minnesota. Again, this is the Chicago home series. This has been a fun matchup, right? Throughout the entirety of the CDL so far. This will be Minnesota's first series. Now with Major Maniac back in the lineup, they do bench accuracy. Really after just having kind of a lackluster stage 3. You know, stage 3 has not treated the rocker too kindly. A lot of people were kind of surprised by their finish at the stage 3 major, and I'm not trying to, you know, obviously talk myself up. I did have them losing where they did in the elimination bracket, and the reason why I had that was because I feel like you couldn't rely on them on anything but control, right? I think it was like Raid and Garrison. They've set up a nice little combo there, but their hard point was just not consistent. It was not reliant enough. And then myself and Stud, like we've talked about this on the cast, when we've seen the rocker, their looks in Search and Destroy, they just look the same. Like they just look to be super predictable in the S&Ds. And I feel like if you didn't have a good Search and Destroy team to face off against them, that's when you could see them start to thrive a little bit. You know, if they were to face off against, you know, a Paris, for example, or, you know, whoever you want to kind of throw into the to the reticle, you know, that's where they could really look good. But I think for Minnesota, I think with adding a player like Major Maniac, they're going to really improve in the Search and Destroys. And I hope that this kind of just refocuses the team in the hard points, and then just allows for their controls to be somewhat similar. You know, like I said, accuracy was not playing great, but he was their clutch player. He can be a great in-game leader. At times he can take over in matchups, and I don't know how much we're going to see that for Major, but I think he could be a great assistant piece to a group of 3 players who I think honestly can take over the team for themselves. Like I don't think that this team lacks the ability to slay. I think it just lacks the direction, and so I think that Major Maniac can provide that. I do. With that being known, Chicago, they looked much better at the stage 3 major. I was really hoping that we would see them make somewhat of a splash in an elimination bracket, and they're able to do that. They win 4 games straight. They go to a game 5 round 11, another game 5 round 11. Major exit for Optic, which is obviously unfortunate for them. But I think I tweeted this. Overall, leaving the weekend, I'm happy if I'm an Optic fan. I am much more happy than I thought I would be if I was an Optic fan, because they were able to do what a lot of people didn't expect them to do. I think the Dashi looked much better. Envoy seemed to be playing at a much different pace. It just looked like the team just kind of flipped the switch back to where they were prior. And it was kind of odd because I obviously expected them to make the progress that they did. but it was just weird how instant it was. It wasn't like it took time. It just seemed to just be like, okay, let's just do what we did previously. So again, I don't really know where to sit on the Optic team overall. Like, is this going to be a consistent thing or not? But I do have this one going down to a game 5. And I honestly do want to go with Minnesota in the search and destroys, but I think that because of adding in a player like Major Maniac, I think it is going to take a little bit of time for them to get back to that search and destroy improvement. Like I said, this very well is going to be a great series because I think that Minnesota can steal hard points. I think Chicago overall is going to be favored in those. And then in search and destroys, we very well could see a trade. Control could be the swing mode, as we like to label it. But I am going to give Optic the advantage here. I have them taking this in a game 5. I also could have it in a 3-1. I wrote my notes 3-1, 3-2, but I am going to go game 5 here. I like the move that Rocker made, and I think that it is going to show early that it was the right decision to make. So quickly, coming into day 3, we're talking about Minnesota Rocker. They're right back in the mix, which I think is actually going to be good for them. If they play the way that I expect them to, I think it's actually going to be good for them to quickly get into another series. It's going to allow for them to kind of establish somewhat of a rhythm versus a team that's also going to be talented at hardpoint. I know Optic in stage 3 was not labeled as a good hardpoint team, but I think that they have improved to being at the very least a good, not necessarily great, but a solid to good hardpoint team. So I think same thing, same line of Paris here. I think they will improve in that manner. I think Minnesota do. If they don't steal the first hard point, I think they win the search and destroy. I think they at least trade one of the hard points. I don't think we see Paris walk away with both. And if Minnesota does win the first, I don't know, maybe see Paris somehow win a search and destroy. Probably not. Maybe they get a control win, depending on what map it could be. I'm going to have this one as a 3-1. I think that Minnesota do walk away with this. Paris, unfortunate, right? You're facing off against a phase lineup. That's never going to be easy. And then you're facing off against Minnesota, who I think have really improved their roster coming into stage 4. I like Rocker to take this. And you never know, right? Paris could come out and surprise. I think with adding a player like Major Maniac, that just instantly fine-tunes the search and destroys. And that, at the very least, is going to be a benefit for this roster. So, with that, LA Thieves taking on the Seattle Surge. Both teams, this is their first series with their new rosters. We'll talk first about Seattle, right? They bring in Classic from Paris Legion. Decimate, no idea. I have no idea what went on with Decimate. Clearly, it just did not work out from both parties. I know there was some, I don't know if this was official or rumors about, how Decimate just was not comfortable with the team. I really don't know. I'll be honest with you. All that I know is that Decimate is just no longer here. And that's just how they're moving forward. So with that being the case, I do think that Classic is a nice addition. I do. I know that a lot of people were just like, Classic, really? Which, again, from Seattle's perspective, I was not expecting them to just come out and just hit us with a haymaker type of off season, or rather an off week type of move. There was discussions that Octane had in a YouTube video where he was like, we wanted to get Vivid, but we just couldn't work out a deal. A week later, 2 weeks later, you see Dallas, they were able to walk away with that deal. So my expectations were kind of around a move like this. I didn't know if Classic would be available. I thought we might have seen a Saints possibly come into the Seattle team. I would have loved to have seen a John come into this roster as well, because I think that he would have maybe fit nicer. But I will say, I don't mind it. I really don't. I mean, you talk about a guy like Classic who could be an intangible type of player. He has won with Octane before. He has won with Gunless before. So I feel like he has the ability to be a piece that can improve the roster, but it does not take away from what is the overall spotlight that is on Gunless and Procini, right? I think that is going to be the continued talking point for this team coming into champs, if they can make it the champs, which does not look very good right now for them because they sit 12th in the standings. I think if they lose this series, that would be 7 or 8 series in a row. So they desperately want to turn things around. That is known, that is very apparent, and you just don't really know, right, what Procini and what Gunless you're going to get out of this roster, because in stage 1, both not great. Stage 2 totally turned things around. Stage 3 basically returned back to stage 1 form. And so I feel like for Seattle, it's just kind of a number of different things. I really just want to see them improve in hardpoint. That for me is something that I want to see them kind of become more well tuned in. I don't really know what's going on with control. I mean, what, they just lose so many controls. They're like 3-15, 3-16, 3-17, somewhere around there. Control, I don't see that being rapidly improved with someone like Classic. I don't think if Looney could figure it out. I don't know if Classic's gonna be able to figure it out either. But I'm hoping that they can be a team that improves at the very least in hard points, at least in general when it comes down to respawns, because I think that Classic can be a type of player that can be explosive at times. He can almost kind of play like a Karma role on the Dynasty teams, or he can kind of play like an Enable role on 100 Thieves back in Black Ops 4, where it is not a player who is there to put up numbers, but it is a player who is going to fill the roles, play the roles that he needs to, and step up at times. I think that Classic can be that guy. I think he will be much more well utilized on the Surge than he will be on a team like Paris Legion. And then for Thieves, what? I mean, Spotlight could not be bigger, right? You have Hook, you make a big change, one of the biggest changes that we have ever seen in CDL history. You bring him onto this roster, he plays 4 series, you go 1-3, and now he's benched. That's it. I mean, you really don't know. We don't know much more than that. We don't know if it's a personal problem. We don't know if it's a gameplay problem, whether it's a mixture of the two, if it's the Thieves kind of being scared of moving down in the standings because, you know, they can somewhat teeter. I think they're like in 6th or 7th right now in the standings. Let me just verify real quick. Yeah, they're currently 6th in the standings. So 13-12. They're at 170 points. They're 30 points behind Optic, who's in 5th. And they are 30 points ahead of Minnesota, who is in 7th. So I will say they're pretty well snugged. I think from 6 to 7, I don't think we're going to see them pivot either which way unless they have a great performance at the major, because I think that your top 4, top 5 teams are going to kind of stay somewhat around there. But again, I think for the Thieves, this is a big series already, right? This is a very big series, because my worry for LA is that you're trying to bring back Tej. You want to try to reestablish what you already had. What if that does not work, right? Because clearly they were ready to pull the trigger with Hook. So it is already well known Hook had somewhat of a problem. Tej was the first person to go. So I feel like the whole reason why Thieves were so good was because it was a group of 4 players who didn't really know their future. It was very well known what had happened in their past. They were all kind of expected to just get dominated at the stage 2 major elimination bracket. Like, no one expected them to go far, and they did, right? They caused all kinds of teams to make changes. They come into stage 3, they still look really good. They look like one of the best teams in the CDL. And then they decide, hey, you know what? We're going big time, right? We're going big time. We're bringing in Hook. We're putting all the cards on the table, and it doesn't work out. My problem, like I said, with the Thieves is that if this does not work, right? If the quick decision to just implement Tej back in the lineup does not work, what happens? Because I feel like the whole driving force behind this team was kind of the chemistry factor. It was the bond that these guys had. Now that I feel like you've kind of bruised that bond and it doesn't work early, what? Is Tej back to the bench? Is Hook back in? Is Venom gone? Like, how do you really experiment with this? And that is, I think, the worrisome part is that if the Thieves don't do well early, now with their old iteration of a team back, there is a very understanding pressure on the SMGs, I think, for this team. And then you also have Slasher on the bench of all people, who could be very helpful toward the end of the season when it comes down to champs. So you have Venom and Tej with, I feel like, a lot of pressure on their shoulders because they have an all-star in Hook who is ready to get back in the team. He desperately wants to play at champs. So again, I feel like there's a lot of pressure on the Thieves to play well here. And I will probably surprise a lot of people because I am going to have the Surge winning this series. I like to go for some crazy ones. I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to go for too many crazy series in this week, but this is one that I am going to go for. I am going to have Seattle winning this one in the game 5. I just think that Surge are going to be so motivated. Thieves, I think, are going to be trying to figure things out. And I just think that this roster change early on is going to kind of scare them a little bit. It's going to say, hey, okay, then we got Tej back here. We're facing off against the Surge. Like, where does that kind of set us at? Depending on how they look, depending on how they respond, this is the only series that Thieves are playing this week. So I will kind of reassess them, I think, coming into week 2. But I think the Surge are super hungry coming into this, and I think that Classic is a better move than most people expect. So again, both teams off of a change. I'll reassess that coming into next week. That is not me saying that Surge are a better team than the Thieves. It is just on this particular day, I'm going to give Seattle the nod for the upset, because we will see one upset. It's true. We will see at least one upset, if not multiple. Probably multiple happen at the Chicago home series. I'm going to go ahead and go out and predict one. For this next one, no upset here for me. No upset here for me. I'm going to go ahead and get back to reality. It is a game fuel match, so it means double points. Again, I wish I had a game full so I could chug it real quick. But obviously, Gorillas off a top 10 finish at the Stage 3 Major. New York off of a second place finish. They were my favorite to win Stage 3 Major. Very close. No problems, New York. You can just send me a jersey if you want. No problem. It's fine. I think I made it, like, I forget, it's like a Twitter story. I have no idea what they're called. And I had tweeted at New York. I was like, no pressure to get this one done. And who knows, maybe the pressure affected them a little bit. Definitely not my tweet. But this is gonna be a hard matchup for the Gorillas. When we talk about their craftiness and hardpoint, and a lot of people are like, wait, craftiness and hardpoint? Really, like I said, they're a great search and destroy team. We know that, but they are sneakily a good team in hardpoint. They can take hard points away from some of the top teams in the game, based off of strategy, based off the way they can play certain hills. They can get the job done. But the problem, I think, for this LAG team is, I think the problem for this Gorillas team for this series is going to be the fact that you're going to run into a great hardpoint team, and a team that I think is going to rapidly continue to improve in the search and destroys. So, and then we also talked about the SMG side of things. Hydra looked excellent at All-Stars. I know he did face off against Apathy and kind of handled them pretty well in the 1v1s. That's not necessarily coming into this series, but it just kind of goes to show how impactful a player like Hydra is. And I actually talked about this, I think, with like Miles and Chance, like in the green room. I was like, do you guys think the Hydra could be like the Shotzi or the Simp of this season, where it's a rookie who kind of comes out of not necessarily nowhere, but almost kind of comes out of nowhere and just kind of takes over? Obviously those players did win the MVP. I'm not saying that necessarily Hydra's going to win the MVP. But when we talk about kind of an SMG rookie player who is instantly making an impact to their team, you kind of get the same notion. And I feel like Hydra is the best pick to be that kind of person. And so I think that the Gorillas, their SMGs are going to kind of have a handful. I hope that Gorillas really kind of utilize that strategy and that kind of retaking opportunity versus a roster like New York, but I just don't think it's going to be enough. I think New York takes the opening hard point. I think they can win the search and destroy, depending on what map that we do get, which I really have no idea. And then we talk about the control. I think you do favor New York there as well. Depending on the map, who knows, maybe Gorillas could get a nice one in, but I'm going to go New York 3-0. Again, it's hard because I really want to go for like 3-1s often, because 3-1s, for those who don't know, are the most common series. But I really am going like with what I think. Like sometimes I'll go with strategy and I'll just be like, okay, 3-1, 3-1, 3-1. But a majority of the time I do like to change it up. If we ever have like straight 3-1s, that is actually because I think that, not because of me strictly going off of strategy, which, like I said, if I really wanted to, every series would be a 3-1 or 3-2, because, you kind of get, or rather maybe the reverse. Who knows? We'll see. Oops, I actually just clicked on next week. There we go. Thank goodness the pick'em saved. All right. Now it is Sunday, right? We're coming into the final day of the Chicago home series. Again, this video has been way longer than expected, as well. I said as expected. I kind of expected it to be longer. But again, Florida versus London. It's another hard one to predict. Again, like I said, Florida, a hard team to kind of summarize, I guess. This is, I think, going to be a great battle. I really do. I think this is going to be a good matchup. When we talk about kind of all the roles for both teams, I think this one very well could come down to the search and destroys. Based off the way that I look at it, you got Paul X versus Awakening. You got Shawnee versus Skies, the SMGs. It's kind of hard to know what we're going to get out of them. I mean, how great can Afro be? And what his second series, Alex as well, who I think is probably going to be the biggest X factor coming into this week. But I am going to give Florida the victory. I'm going to give them the nod. But this may change based on how London looks versus Dallas. Again, I had them losing 3-1. I think they could steal like a hard point or a control, maybe versus the Empire, maybe even a search and destroy, to be honest with you, just to go full circle. But I'm going to have this one 3-2. I'm going to have Ravens playing them close, looking a little bit better. I am betting that Alex does perform well. Same thing with Afro. But again, sometimes I do go through, by the way, these are my pick'ems. I will at times go through and change them up a little bit because, again, we have a lot of teams who play twice a week. If I get a series dramatically incorrect, sometimes I will go back and adjust it. There's nothing I can really do about it. Just, for example, let's say that the Ravens just dominate Dallas 3-0 and it's like, oh my gosh, what the heck just happened? I'm not going to keep this one in the game 5 if I really think that Ravens are the real deal, for example. So just letting you guys know that. I think that most of you probably are aware that that could be a thing, and it is. All right, 2 phenomenal games to close out Sunday. Really 3 great games in general for the Chicago home series. Gosh, I wish this was on land. Toronto versus Dallas. How about this one? Dallas are going to have to be very well prepared for a series like this one. Toronto, in this case, would be off a nice win versus Florida. Dallas would be off of a win versus London. Again, I just have a lot of questions about the rest of Dallas. Like, I have a lot of questions on Krim. I have a lot of questions on Illy. Now back in the flex role. I feel like they will need to win hard points here. I think that was kind of what we saw at the stage 3 major. The way to attack Toronto is through the hard points. Their search and destroy is too good. Their control is too good. You have to hit them in the hard points and then try to steal one from there. I think if they will steal one, I think that I'll say this. I think that if Dallas do win a hard point, I still like Toronto in the search and destroy and the control. Despite having a player like Vivid, who I think will be crafty, you just have a lot of pieces on Ultra that it's just hard to bet against them. Like with Cammy going on sprees, with Kleenex playing the way that he is, like Inside is just turret on the map. It is hard to predict against these guys. And again, I know it's going to look like, Landon thinks that Dallas are just going to get dominated. Not necessarily. This very well could be a close 3-0. It is just, again, another matchup where I'm talking about that hard point, how important it is. If Dallas does not win that, I think that it is going to be Toronto in the search and destroy and in the control as well. So again, no hate on the Empire. Not just because I like the guys in the Dallas Empire, but just in general. I'd say that for any team, you have to kind of, mention that because, again, just because I have a 3-0 does not mean that I think that one team is bad. Just want to reference that. Okay. Down to our final game. Down to our final series. And what a good one it is, folks. A good way to close out the Chicago home series. Atlanta FaZe versus Optic Chicago. Plus, it is for double points. Game fuel double points game. This is going to be a fun one. This is the Chicago home series after all. They did play each other in stage 3, and I think it was a 3-0 for Atlanta. But all of that gets wiped away because of how good the Optic did look at the stage 3 major. Again, the team just flipped the switch. I have no idea how they managed to just turn things around that dramatically, because they legitimately just looked like a team who has not gone through problems like they did throughout stage 3. And honestly, whenever I was kind of preparing my thoughts for this series, I did want to go for Chicago because I love to pick up sets. It is so much fun, especially if you get them right. Because I think that they can handle business in the search and destroys. And I think that they absolutely have the ability to take a respawn here for sure, if not maybe 2. But I just don't think that the series is going to be like, I don't think that they can sneak up on FaZe. Like, I really don't. I don't think that Atlanta is going to be sneaked up on. I think that Checkmate S and D pick, for Atlanta could possibly hurt them a little bit, maybe at times throughout this stage. Who knows how well practiced, how well seasoned teams are going to be at standoff. Earlier on, teams tend to want to veto out maps they're just not comfortable with. We obviously saw that in Apocalypse. Now everybody wants to play it. Earlier they did not. Standoff was, or rather not Standoff, Express wasn't really played a ton. Now we see that a lot more in series. So the same thing could kind of happen for Standoff as well. But I am going to go with Atlanta. I'm going to go with Atlanta 3-2. I think this one could go down to a game 5. Honestly, I do want to have a 3-1. And I think that a majority of that for me is just strictly because of double points, because it's just a lot easier to predict a 3-1. I'm honest. I'm going to debate this in my head for a minute. So I'm thinking about vetoes. Like I said, Optic did look a lot better in their hard points. Dash was playing a lot better. Like the same routes were working for Envoy. It's just, I might go 3-1. And again, I'm not going 3-1 for strategy's sake. I've kind of worked it out in my mind. I feel good about this one. I think that, again, that Chicago showed us that they are the real deal. But I just don't see it being enough. I think this will be a very close 3-1, if that makes sense. So I have a 3-1, not a 3-2, but I think that the 3-1 scoreline, a majority of the maps will be close. I think that I will like Atlanta to at least get either the hard point of the search and destroy. Let's say that they lose the hard point. Well, I like Atlanta to at least trade those. Let's say they lose the search and destroys, and there's a good chance that Atlanta face probably, again, trade that later down the line. And then in control, Atlanta, they are just so terrifying in that mode. They can just 3-0 you without a second thought. And so I think that it will be a good series for Optic. I think they will play this one close, but I'm going to go with FaZe for this. So again, those are my pick'ems for the Chicago home series. We're going to go and lock it in. Make sure to press save. I've done that many times where I have made my picks, turned my computer off, and instantly regretted it. So there we go. Pick'ems are official. I pretty, unless something crazy happens, the first 2 days are not going to change. We could possibly see day 3, day 4, depending on how other matchups go. Stuff like that, maybe go a different direction. But again, I have Dallas going 1-1 with their new lineup. They do lose 3-0 to Toronto in their last game. So where does Dallas kind of look at coming into week 2? Chicago had them going 1-1, but they do have 2 very difficult opponents. I believe the Minnesota Rocker will be a tough one for them to get through as well. Minnesota puts together a solid week also, but despite a close series versus Chicago, Toronto go 2-0 despite what could be also a very difficult week for them. Paris, despite their change, they go 0-2. Seattle pull out the upset versus the Thieves, and I think that will be the storyline coming into week 2, is where do the Thieves go from here? That is a scary loss for them. Where do they look at looking forward? Surge, they get a much needed victory. Could this be, Pristinian Gunless performing again? Was Classic just the piece that they really, really needed? I think those are going to be our storylines coming into the next week. But again, like I said, if you have any thoughts, any predictions that you think I might have got wrong, any predictions that maybe you thought I could have got right, feel free to let me know. Again, kind of continue this conversation down in the comments. Let me know on social media, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Twitter. Do your best, right, to get involved, because I really appreciate it. Again, giveaways are going to be coming at some point. I don't want to guarantee anything, so don't, be tuning in just strictly hoping that a giveaway could come. It will be at some point, so I just want to make sure that is known. But again, I really appreciate everybody for tuning into this. Again, those are my lock-ins for the Chicago home series. I hope that you all did enjoy, and I hope that we can, get some victories here. I hope that we can have a solid week despite what is going to be a difficult one of the more difficult weeks that we've had in a long time, given the amount of roster changes and whatnot. So we're hoping to maybe get like 70% of the matches right. I'd be happy with that. But again, appreciate everybody for tuning in, and I will see you next week for another edition of LandO's Lock-ins.